Careful with your Elans, because somebody's had a bite out of this one, haven't they? Hi, this is Lot 76 Cars. My name's Simon and welcome to the Collecting Cars coffee run at the Bicester Heritage Centre. As you can see in the background, some great cars already entering the show. Let's try and catch up with a few of them and try and meet some of the owners as well. So we're going to have a chat with the owner of this M3 CS, a relatively rare car, just a few hundred units made. Hopefully he can tell me a little bit more about it.
It's only made about 260 of them. It comes in Interlagos blue and SMG as well as the manual box. I've had it for around 2 years now. Restored it underneath. It's as clean underneath as it is on top. I haven't done too much to it because the previous owners done quite a bit to it, but I just sort of finished doing some bits and pieces, freshen it up, put some new front grills on it, new under panels, some nuts and bolts, just bits and pieces that needed to be done on it. I've put CSL original seats on it. It cost a small fortune. The original seats I've got in the garage, but I've changed the seat to the CSL seats.
We'll cut those in, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got CSL front wheels on it. It came as standard with the CSL style wheels, but these are original CSL wheels, which are 11 kilograms lighter than the standard.
11 kilograms is important, yeah.
Very, very important, those 11
weight,
kilograms. Yeah, it has all the Alcantara, and I've added a few more Alcantara bits and pieces to it.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's a nice car, gets some nice compliments, and
tell me about the gearbox. You say it's Interlagos blue, did you say?
It's Interlagos blue.
Interlagos blue.
It's the only E46 M3 that came in that colour. If you see a E46, it won't be in Interlagos, it will be in the silver grey, black or whatever other colour. The only CS came with Interlagos blue.
Okay, well thank you for telling me about it.
Problem.
Thank you very much.
No
Cheers.
problem at all.
Peugeot 306 1.8 XS, this one's actually for sale. These are a fantastic car. I mean, this is a facelifted car, so it's obviously got the different grille on the front, but this was a massive success for Peugeot back in the day, and dynamically, I guess this side of a Ford Focus, it was probably one of the best cars dynamically in that class. Now these are starting to have their day. The E39 BMW is still within reach, arguably peak BMW some would say. E34s have got a little bit expensive, but to me, certainly compared with the Bangle design car that followed it, I really like these. My father had one of these in touring form with the obviously opening rear window. This is a very, very accomplished large saloon car. Now talking of 5 Series, I've found an E34 after all. Here's a 525i with those fabulous metric wheels on there. The 525i, particularly of this age, picked up the Vanos variable valve timing, which gave it, I think, the best part of 190 or 200 brake horsepower. My dad had a manual one of these, which was pretty unusual back in the day, and I can tell you from my experience, it was a pretty quick car. So Lord knows what the M Series cars were like. Lovely car, great to see one of those here today. Now I always like to pick out the more unusual cars you don't see every day. So you say, why are you showing me a Ford Focus? Well, there's one reason I'm showing you this particular Ford Focus, because it's a gear, yeah, okay, we get that, but it's a saloon. They sold these in very, very tiny numbers. I think it succeeded to the next generation Focus and then eventually was dropped, but really unusual to see one here. No, it's not a performance car, but yeah, it's probably rarer than some of the other cars here. So being launched in 1968 is this C3 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray 427. Absolute fabulous American muscle car, isn't it? Look at the size of the car, the interior with that beautiful, stunning blue interior. The owners helpfully left it open. Doesn't it look glorious in there? Wow, you better like blue if you like this. In terms of American cars, probably I'd argue this is one of the prettiest, I reckon anyway, certainly. So we're going to have a chat with the owner of this Thunderbird that's been in his family for many, many years. I think it's a 64. He'll certainly know a lot more about it than we do, and hopefully we'll be a bit wiser in a few minutes.
This has been our family since 1981. We are the third, I'm technically the third registered keeper of
Okay.
it. Shipped it over from Texas last year. All original, and it's got 17,000 miles on it. Never had been in rain, never been outside. It's been a wonderful vehicle. It's a 390 cubic inch, so 6.2 liter. Gets about 8 miles a gallon downhill, but it's a lovely ride, and we're big fans of it. No issues with it, and happy to have it over here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got things like, the other things like, it must have air conditioning.
It
does
has air conditioning, it has power steering, power windows, power door locks. It's got power seats. So it's all the amenities of a modern car, and it rides like you're driving a marshmallow.
From 1964.
1964 Ford Thunderbird, yeah.
Okay, and any plans to do any long distance trips with it or other
That's
shows?
a good question. I'd love to take it out to the continent, but I'd still bedding in. So when it was bought by my family in 1981, it had 14,000 miles on it. It's now got 17, so we're still kind of bedding in, figuring out what needs to be replaced, what needs to be worked on, because it is, 68 years old, 69 years old now. So you've got to make sure all the gaskets and all the hoses and everything are in good shape. But at some point, yeah, we're going to take it through France. That's the goal.
So collecting cars today, you're I guess this is a bit of a test run for you, is it?
Yeah.
So bizarrely, at the same event, we've got another Thunderbird. This is a drop-top car from the 50s. Also, a local car to the event. Looks absolutely fantastic, doesn't it? The perfect car for today because the sun's come out to play. Let's just take a look inside. Love that wrap round windscreen, those chrome details on there, and of course, what would it be? It's an automatic, clearly, but it's so of its time, isn't it? So of its time. And there's actually probably, you might even get 3 people in there. Not sure technically whether that's legal or not, but who knows? What a great looking car. Nice to see something a little bit different at these events this year. So this is an E32 7 Series, only the second generation of 7 Series. I think launched in '86, succeeding the original model which was launched in '77. This may well be a long wheelbase car. It's actually a really, really pretty colour. I'm not sure how well it shows up on camera, but this metallic red colour looks really, really nice, doesn't it? Owner looks like he's put some far bigger wheels on it, and we'll try and see if we can have a chat with him about it in a second as well. It's a fabulous car. 740. So this is the rare 740. Many of these were 735s or 750s with the V12. If you take a look at this one, it's actually been converted to a manual, so I bet it's a bit of a beast. It's a long wheelbase car, so the owner's going to let me have a look in the back of the car. So plenty of room, picnic tables in the back, or just equipped for an 80s or 90s executive. Lovely black leather interior. Oh, glorious, isn't it? So this Lancia Tamer is a great looking car, but in actual fact it's the holy grail of Lancia Tamers. It's the Lancia Tamer 832 fitted with the Ferrari engine. Yeah, what an incredible car. Great to see one of these here. There can't be more than a handful of these in the UK, I can imagine. So back in 1997 the Lancia range kicked off, I think probably about 13 or 14,000 pounds, but for 37,500 you could have yours fitted with a Ferrari V8 engine. So it's surprisingly, or not surprising I should say, it's a snug fit in there, isn't it? Lovely condition, this car. Absolutely stunned to see one of these here today. Some of those design touches, I mean, again, it's typical Lancia Tamer in terms of look and feel. One of the Type 4 cars with along with the Fiat Chroma and the Saab 9000 and I think the Alfa 164. But this one is the only one so far as I know out of that group that got something like a high performance derivative, super high performance derivative. Great to see that here today, it's lovely. So this is a BMW E9 CSL Coupe Sport Lightweight. I'm not sure how it sounds like in German, obviously not like that. So I'm going to have a chat with Mark, who owns this fabulous Coupe Sport Lightweight BMW E9. Let me get that right, and he'll tell us a little bit more about it. So Mark, tell us about this fabulous E9 CSL. I think I saw it at the Scramble, the last Scramble. It might have been.
I was here briefly, yeah. But you might have seen it before that at Gaydon at the Ultimate BMW show a couple of weeks before that.
And these were homologated for touring cars or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. In 1972-73 homologated. The Germans made 500 right-hand drive and 497 or thereabouts left-hand drive, and then a further 167 Batmobiles to enable them to go racing, which they did.
And this is in fabulous condition. Is it like this when you acquired it, or
no? It's been restored twice since I've had it. I've had it since 1979.
Wow.
And restored it in about 83, I think it was, and then restored it again in 2015.
And have you had it on the track at all?
No, as you can see, it's completely kitted out because it will be a track.
I was going to say, I looked at inside. Look, is it like a fuel cell in the back? Is it?
No, it's just a slosh tank. So it's full of fuel, but it's
okay.
It's a little tiny fuel tank for when you're going around corners you don't starve the car of fuel.
Okay.
So what happened is once I got into restoring it and thinking I was going to use it as a track day car, it became apparent it was never going to go near a track. So, so I left all the bits and pieces, exactly. So everything on it is track day capable, but it won't ever go on a track now.
Fabulous. Thank you for telling us about it. Thank you, Mark.
No problem.
Cheers. So nice to see a Mark 1 Golf, and it's staggering how small these cars look compared to the cars, or certainly cars in the same segment today. I think this was a Giugiaro design car. Not sure if it's a GTI. It certainly looks like a GTI, doesn't it? Got some slightly bigger wheels on it, but and I think that colour is Mars Red. I'll put that in the comments if you know different, please, guys. So one of Colin Chapman's lightweight creations, it's a Lotus Elan. This one looks like it's a proper racing one. I think this is on another YouTube channel. I think the guy's called Oliver Naylor. Correct me if I'm wrong, Oliver, if you're watching. It looks like... Now I'm pretty sure this Emir is one that is been built for Harry Metcalf. It's got factory plates on it, AU plates, I think Norfolk plates, finished in an unusual metallic, I don't know, what's that sort of grey titanium type colour. It certainly works, that colour. You know, on paper maybe not, but in reality it does show the shape of that car really well. You really get an impression of how curvy that car is. Look at those air intakes at the front, probably to increase downforce, create a very clean profile through the air. That sculpted rear is one of those cars that you really need to see face to face, and you've got that fabulous rear spoiler all fed in. Everything's there for a reason on a Lotus, isn't it? Nothing trivial, it's all there for a reason. Lovely Saab 900 turbo. This looks like it's in daily use from what I can tell. What I do like about these cars, maybe it's only me, but I love that alloy wheel design. Those wheels are tiny by today's standard, but that design is so distinctive. See if we can just take a peep inside there, just about see that wraparound dash and those very comfortable Saab seats. Really good to see that here. He's got the obligatory Smith and Sniff sticker in the back window. Sporting a Gulf petroleum livery, and doesn't it look good for it, is this Triumph TR4. The TR4, I believed it was a Michelotti design car. The Italians had a huge amount of influence on Triumphs of that period. I'm pretty sure it was Michelotti who designed it. Fabulous, looking at sort of turned aluminium central surround. Obviously it's been modified, but I think it's been done in quite a tasteful way, and with that top on, relatively practical, more practical than a full convertible, I guess. So you can see in the background, cars are still arriving at this event. Hope you've enjoyed what we've seen so far. We'll try and take a look in more detail at some of the more interesting cars that have arrived since I started the video, so stick with us, plenty more to come soon. So European market, these were known as a Starlet, but you can see with this one it's an imported car and it's known as the Glanzer. Subtly modified lowered suspension here. Actually, you know, I quite like this. I'm not really a big fan of modded cars, but this one's really tasteful. Got some very comfortable Recaros in there, by the look of it anyway. Launched by Honda, I think in 1972 in the UK, is the Civic. This is the early generation car from that sort of first few generations. I think they're on generation 10 now or something. It's been facelifted, but I think the basic shell is very similar, certainly in terms of look, to the original cars, although this one looks to be something like an 82. Lovely to see this one here today. You generally don't see these at car shows. Honda's got a few in their own collection of vehicles, but rarely do you see a privately owned car in this condition. Looks superb. It does say it's got a Turbo Techniques conversion on it. I'm not sure if that's the case. If the owner's watching this, then please drop it in the comments. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what this was at first, but it's a Civic Sprite. So these were lightweight versions of the Sprite, or the midget to you and I, developed for racing. It's got that lower front, and we've got that fared in roof into a coupe design. I don't think midgets were ever supplied in a coupe design, only as a roadster, like the MGB. It's certainly a pretty car. Now, next to it, we've got a relation. We've got an Austin Healey frog-eyed Sprite. So the frog eyes, and we'll have a look around there in a second. We'll pass by that glorious interior. Not sure how effective that hood is, but it's sunny today. And the lights on the front were basically originally designed to be pop-up lights, but due to cost, in actual fact, they ended up on the bonnet like this, simply because of US regulation, and the US was a huge market for roadsters in the 50s and 60s. So we've got an RX-7. I think this was the last but one RX. I think the RX-8 was the last one officially sold in the UK. May well be a Japanese import because it's a right-hand drive car. Fabulous cars. Obviously, people are afraid about fuel consumption and oil consumption on the rotary engines. Some of it not particularly well founded, but for the Fast and Furious audience, here's an unmodified one, pretty much. So an 87 on an E Toyota Supra. This square generationed car, obviously quite clearly influenced, I think, by US cars of that period. Again, these are becoming pretty rare. You don't often see them in this condition and unmodified. It's a 3-litre I, it's not turbocharged. The booted Golf's had many names during its life. It's been known as the Jetta, it's been known as the Bora, and in this generation, in actual fact, it was known as the Vento. Far, far rarer to see one of these in any Golf of the same period. Badged as a 1700 Escort, not sure about that one, it's obviously been bored out, it's got the badges on anyway, is this lovely Escort Mark 1 in this delightful bronzy brown colour. So much of the period this type of colour. Looks like it's perhaps had a bit of competition usage as well. Certainly looks great, doesn't it? Sporting a 2-litre overhead cam engine with a 5-speed gearbox is this Mitsubishi Stallion. Now honestly, I'm going to check how many left when I get back home and put that on the screen, because the chance of actually seeing one of these is just hugely rare. I mean, they were a bit of a left field choice back in the day if you think about what it was competing with, probably what back end of the Capri, maybe back end of Capri production. It's an E, so it's 87 on an E. What a great looking car. I'm really pleased to have seen that one today, and it's in super condition as well, isn't it? So this is a Mazda MX3 V6. Yes, a V6. It's a tiny little car, but this was the version fitted with the V6 engine. Really unusual to see. You see the styling of the MX3 looks very similar to the MX6 in some ways, that typical Mazda styling of the day. It's got the sliding sunroof. Really rare to see this particular car. We'll try and have a chat with the owner about this one if we can. It's really unusual to find them. So I'm going to have a chat with Chris about this fabulous MX3 behind me. I think it's the third one he's actually had, so let's find out what he likes about the MX3 so much. So Chris, you're a multiple owner of MX3s. Now that's pretty unusual to have at least one MX3, but this is a V6 and this is what, the third one you had?
Absolutely, yeah. So third MX3, started when I was 18. My love for them comes from my father had one from new. I was about 10 years old, so that sort of sparked my interest in cars. And I said my first one at 18. I had that for a couple of years, and a second one a few years after that. Regretted selling that one, as I could see they were getting a bit rarer. This one came up for sale, and I've had this for 7 years now. So I say the nostalgia for them is really what sparks it for me. It's a very unusual 1.8 V6, and one of the smallest production V6s ever made. It's not particularly torquey, 117, 20 odd foot-pound of torque.
Smooth.
It's very smooth. Revs to 7.2. So you've really got to drive it, typical sort of Japanese, but very bulletproof, so very well looked after. And yeah, so it's being red. It's had its yearly sort of ceramic coating and trying to stop it going pink.
Excellent, thank you very much. So this is a 205 GTI, one of the special editions. It's an 89. They did them in Sorrento green or this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Miami blue. That's lovely, isn't it? Got the factory roofing. People complain about those, that some of them leak, and I'm not sure if that's true or not. Do remember driving them back in the day, and even then they were quite a handful with that level of power. What was it, be about 130, 150 horsepower, something like that. Obviously got the distinctive wheels, I believe unusual to the 1.9, and the central number plate plinth is still on there. The central plinth is still there. So this one's loud and proud, and it's a TVR, and it's a TVR wedgie, a 390 SE. I think these were towards the end of production, but nevertheless great to see that one here. What a lovely car. It's pop-up lights, yeah, I'm in. So this I think is classed as the Mark IV Escort, the facelifted car. The car picked up a number of features about this time. It picked up the option of a Lucas, I think, or Girling ABS system that operated just on the front wheels, believe it or not, which was an option for a few £100s. I drove one of those cars back in the day. I'm not sure how effective it was. This particular one's in great condition, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Got those gills in the front. I think I'm sort of veering towards the Mark 1s, or certainly the pre-facelift cars, let's call it, the white ones that we all know and love and Princess Diana ran. And this one's got an exhaust, not quite the size of a dustbin lid, but not far off. Not quite hitting classic status yet, but surely can't be far away. This Mark 1 Audi TT. This is the Quattro. It's a right-hand drive car. Some of the early UK cars were in fact left-hand drive. The concept design, I think the sort of Bauhaus design of this, was hardly changed for production. In fact, it's probably one of the few cars that literally moved from concept to production with very, very little in terms of styling changes. This is at least the 225 horsepower, because it's got that second exhaust at the back, and it's in a glorious colour, and it's got the right number plate, hasn't it? So this is a late Lotus Esprit with the V8. I think it's Lotus in-house developed engine. There are stories that making this engine nearly broke them. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. I believe by this stage some of those parts, like the original Renault gearbox and maybe from a Renault 25, I'm not sure, put that in the comments, had been replaced, but nevertheless this is a very, very nice looking car. So a classic, even though it's still on sale, is Toyota GR86, a really uncompromised sports car produced by Toyota, originally a joint venture with Subaru, only sold in the UK as a Toyota. And this generation car, pretty much UK production, already sold out. Read the reviews online and check them out on YouTube, because it's one hell of a driver's car. If you get the chance to own one, take it. In amongst a sea of 911 and Boxsters, we found this glorious Porsche 924. The original car, I think, fitted with the 2-litre engine. Yes, the block itself does come from a VW LT van and maybe from the Audi 100 of the time, but I think that's about it, in fairness. It's still a proper Porsche. Love those lattice alloy wheels. Let's take a look at the inside. I mean, quite honestly, it is of its time, isn't it? That's not a fabric choice you would have now, is it? There are 4-seaters, allegedly. If you're small and hatchback, I think honestly these are really, really practical. I think it's a transaxle design. I think the gearbox is over the rear axle for weight distribution. I'll put that on the screen if I've got that wrong. And a Porsche 356. I remember from a previous show owners telling me that these rotted for fun back in the day, and one of the reasons why Porsche eventually moved to galvanized bodies, simply to kill off that reputation they had for rust. Incredible but true. Glorious Bakelite steering wheel, lovely red interior, red leather maybe, or leatherette. Nevertheless, they are very, very attractive looking cars. Now, it's incredible to believe that the Porsche 928 won the Car of the Year title back in 1978. It's probably one of the only sports cars to win it. Got those fantastic pop-up lights that fold down into the front of the bonnet. An absolutely huge car. I think these were what, 4.5, 4.7 litres. Again, with a very, very of its time interior. Looking like it's just landed from outer space is a Citroen CX. This is a later facelift car. What would this be? A sort of 88, 89 F registration car, and a white one in very good condition. This, in actual fact, is a DTR Turbo 2. Let's try and find out a bit more about this. Brad, tell us about this fabulous car. I haven't seen a CX for years.
Yeah, well, most of them rusted away, didn't they? You know, but this one's quite unique because it's one owner, one previous owner, and 30,000 miles on it. It's all totally original, but the paintwork was a little bit tired, so I had it painted, but there was no rust in it. So you know, it's quite unique, really.
And what's it like getting parts for these days?
Well, when you're in the Citroen Car Club, there's plenty of people who can help you out with parts. In actual fact, this one just come out of Chevronic Centre at Hitchin, and just had quite a lot of money spent on the suspension, new pipes and all that sort of stuff.
And do you use it day to day, or?
In the summer, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, use it not as a daily driver. A daily driver is a different car, but yeah, whenever I can, get out to the shows, and goes away about late October, and that's it for the winter.
Fantastic. And we'll check out, I'll try and cut in some pictures of the interior in a second, because that's something else. So thank you for talking to us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So before British Leyland ownership, Innocenti were producing some very, very pretty little cars. Now this pretty little coupe, it looks like it says Innocenti C. I'll try and put the details on screen, because quite honestly I'm stumped with this one. This is one of the few cars I haven't seen at the many shows I've been to, but I sure as am glad to see this one today. It's got some lovely, lovely design features on this one. It's a tiny car. I'm not sure if this is picked up on camera. It's a H, what would that make it? A 1970 perhaps? Nevertheless, what a pretty little coupe. Now, elsewhere in the video you'll have seen the MX3, but this is the MX6. 2.5 litre V6 engined coupe. I think these were built in Michigan in the US on the same lines as the Ford Probe. Certainly because of the Ford part ownership of Mazda at one time, they had a lot of joint ventures, shared platforms, shared engines, but to see an MX6 these days is pretty unusual. Again, a handful of these cars left, and I think probably the first one I've seen this year. It's great in that sort of wine red metallic. Wonderful. So this VW variant, and it's panelled out at the back, I'm not sure if it left the factory that way. I think these were called 411s, I think very closely based on the Beetle chassis. I think originally the idea was it maybe would succeed the Beetle. So I believe that engine is under the rear floor. In this case, got some lovely period features. If you're the owner of this one, drop us it in the comments and tell us a bit more about it, because I really like your car. It's very unusual, and probably the only one we're going to see today. Launched, I think, at the Birmingham Motor Show in 1982 was the original Sierra. This was the Sapphire, and this is the booted version of it, which came in much later. I think came in probably from about the mid-80s. I had a D registration one back in the day, just a 1.6, which was wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding, sadly. This one looks like it's a little bit more powerful. It looks like it's a later facelift car. Again, not that many Sierras seem to survive. It is rare to see a standard one that's not a instead of a Cosworth one, in actual fact. So this, we may have seen this one before. It's a Mark II Escort automatic. That's what, Kingfisher blue, I'm guessing. It is in stunning condition, absolutely stunning condition. Not sure if you could pick that up on camera. Got that wood interior that the Gears had. Gear was the highest trim level at the time, although it by today's standards didn't give you a lot. Probably a FM AM radio, maybe a cassette if you were lucky, amongst probably tinted glass, but great to see that one here. So this very tastefully modified Mercedes is a W123 sedan. It's a right-hand drive car, it's a UK car, B, so very late on the cusp of the W124, I would suggest. It's been modified, got that lip spoiler at the front. Actually, it's been very tastefully modified, to be honest with you, and a little bit lowered. Very nice. And an Alfa Romeo 145. So if you like your retro Fords, we've got a 1.8 diesel GL. We've got a Mark III Fiesta, I think. This was a big change when Ford introduced this, a big step forward in terms of styling. And we've got the so-called Mark II, which was really a facelifted Mark I car. Now I've always got room for a Mark II Astra GTE. This really was the performance car to have. This, I think, is the 8 valve rather than the 16 valve. But look what's next door. You've got a Colt, I'm not sure if that was called Mirage or not, in Mitsubishi, long since gone from the UK. And next to it, the first Nissan to actually be produced at the factory in the UK up in Sunderland is this Nissan Bluebird. Relatively rare to see these. This was succeeded by the Primera, but this was the car that started it all. Nissan's manufacture in the UK began with the Bluebird. A shark nose E28 BMW with those, I think they're metric alloy wheels, difficult to get tyres for those. I think those are they Michelin TRX ones or something like that. Very distinctive looking cars. I mean, to some extent the E12 and the E28 like this hold lots of appeal. In fact, so does the E34. I think E39 onwards, their styling change direction radically. So an extremely beautiful and somewhat valuable Pagoda Mercedes SL. I'm not sure whether officially called SL or Sport Light in that generation. Fortunately, this one's open. It looks like it's got the full MB text interior or something like this. It's a pretty car, isn't it? No denying it's a pretty car. Values of these have absolutely shot up. Lovely to see the Fiat Panda here. I think the Bertoni designed Panda. I mean, flat glass, flat sides, about as simple as you could get. But what a design triumph that car was, wasn't it? So this was Gordon Murray's first ever road car. It's a rocket. It's got a 1000cc Yamaha engine with a 5 or 6 speed sequential gearbox, and just 55 of these were produced, so to see one here today is really, really unusual. Look at that cockpit. I mean, pretty much it's a racing car for the road. Got that tubular chassis, tubular space frame chassis there, exposed rear suspension. What a fantastic car, and really rare even to see one of these full stop. Fantastic, isn't it? Somewhat poorly received back in the day is this Rolls-Royce Camargue. It was produced, I think, during the Vickers ownership of Rolls-Royce. It was at one stage, or at that stage, the most expensive car in the world. Rare to see them, but I believe a commercial failure, not that many produced. So we're going to talk to the owner about this absolutely fabulous Lancia Florina and find out a bit more about its unusual story.
Hi, Pete Holloway. I'm glad you enjoy my beautiful car. It's an amazing survival story. It was in a lockup in Mexico for 30 years. And the building was owned by a reclusive guy who died, and in tracing his properties they found this car in one of the buildings without an engine and vandalised and semi-derelict. And the chap was so captivated by the car, he asked if it could be if he could take it as part payment of his fees. And they agreed, and he thought I better put an American engine in it because I'd never find an original V6 engine for it. And his wife was working on the estate and found an envelope entitled Lancia, and inside was a bill for $450, dated 27 years earlier. This was 2002. And it was for $450 for overhauling the engine and carburetors. And so after a lot of detective work, the chap knocked on the door and said, do you know, I believe that you might know somebody who used to run a garage locally, long since closed. He said, that was my father. And he said, well, I've got a Lancia. So I was distracted by my phone ringing. He's got a Lancia, and we need the engine for it, but have you any ideas where? She said, well, it's my father's garage, and I'll go and get him for you. 93 or 94 years old, and he came to the door, and he said, it's in the shed, so I'll go and get it for you. And I said, well, will you sell it to me? And he said, no, I'll give it to you if you pay the $450 for the bill that was never paid. So it was beautifully restored in Mexico, and that story was only uncovered by myself, because I contacted somebody who was in the old documentation. And he told me the story, so how about that?
That's fabulous. Thank you for telling us that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So here's a 77-78 Porsche 911 Sport Carrera. It's a stunning colour, this one, isn't it? I love those chrome rims. Are they Fuchs alloys? Be careful how you say that one, guys. But it looks a really pretty car. Unusual to see one in that shade. Next to it, the goodness continues. This time we've got a Ferrari Testarossa. Yeah, a Testarossa. So that looks very nice. And next to that, I think that's a 330 Ferrari. I'll check that one out and confirm that one. But again, and next to that, we've got a couple of Integrales. So that is that. It's always nice to see a Fiat 500 at these events. This is a left-hand drive car. This is a later car, it'll be a 6600D, and how you can see is that the doors are in the normal position, i.e. they open as a door normally would from hinged at the front. The earlier cars had got suicide type doors on them, believe it or not. I've yet to see one of those. It's got that lovely sunroof, and on a day like today, a picnic hamper is going to come in very handy, isn't it? So this is a lovely yellow and black Honda NSX, the car that was tested by Ayrton Senna, trying not to get run over on the way out, but what a way to go. Beautiful, isn't it? So we have an E24 BMW. This was manufactured, I think, from 76 or something right through to the late 80s, maybe 89. First cars were assembled by Carmen, and then I think by somebody called Dinglething. I'm sure I've got that one wrong. This one's in lovely order, isn't it? Love those BBS style alloy wheels. It's in stunning condition, and it's a proper four-seater as well, so that may be the Grand Tourer for you. Absolutely stunning. So this is an E36 BMW. I think these are really revvy engines. I think one of the magazines described them as revving like an eager beaver. This is the smoother 325 6-cylinder car with the part painted bumpers. You see the E46s around, even those are becoming less in number, but the E36s are pretty rare going. I do love that styling, that rear boot styling. This one's got the lip spoiler on it, but yeah, I think this might be one for the future. I mean, the E30s are all the rage, aren't they? But I can see E36s going the same way at some stage. So this is a way to travel in style. It's a T1 Splitty, and somebody's, I won't intrude on them because somebody's obviously having some refreshment there, but that's fantastic, isn't it? Who would not want one of those? And the original classic Range Rover in four-door form here. Four-door was introduced very late in the life of the vehicle. This is a very late car. It's on the verge of the P38 Range Rover. It's a 25th edition, 1970 to 1995. Absolutely in stunning order. You couldn't give these away at one time, but now they're becoming really collectible, and this one is in brilliant order. Absolutely brilliant. So this BMW Z8, produced in very limited numbers, was a evocation to the 507 series BMW sports cars of the late 50s. The exterior was designed by a guy called Henrik Fisker. Now, Henrik Fisker designed the Fisker Karma, and you'll see some styling cues on the Fisker Karma, certainly from the front end, are associated with this car. It actually starred in one of the Bond movies. For the life of me at the moment, I can't think which one that is, so I'll put it on screen. But an absolutely stunning car, built in super low numbers. It really is great to see one of those here. We'll just take a quick look in the interior, and stunning interior. This red interior, again, a relatively modern car when it's produced, but got lots and lots of style, hasn't it? I think Johnny Smith drove one of these recently, so if you want to see a test drive of this, check out one on the Johnny Smith channel. So thanks for joining me on Lot 76 Cars at the Collecting Cars Bicester event. Hope you've enjoyed the cars we've seen and the owner interviews. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications to be notified about my new videos. I hope you've enjoyed this, and once again, thanks for watching.